It's a few months removed from the start of the year, there's a ton of sentimental, depressing movies dominating the box office, and for your consideration campaigns line every street in Los Angeles. All of these point to one thing. The Academy Awards are right around the corner. In any other year, this is a time for movie lovers to go out to the theaters and watch as many nominated films as possible. But as you all know, we are not in any other year. With theaters closed for majority of 2020, most studios resorted to selling the distribution rights to their films to streamers, or circumventing the release window entirely and releasing films straight to digital. This has created a very strange and unusual situation where you can watch a majority of the Oscar nominees right now. Like, between Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, Apple TV Plus, and Disney Plus, 67% of all nominees this year are available to watch anytime you want, and most of the rest are available on video on demand as well. Pandemic or not, we live in an age where watching great movies is now easier than ever, and I for one have been trying to utilize that to catch up on as many of the nominees as possible. And for as impacted as this year has been, we have still seen some incredibly quality titles come out within the last 12 months. And with the Oscars comes my favorite Oscar tradition and arguably the only fun one, trying to predict what will win each category. I typically have a pretty good track record with this kind of thing, and last year I was able to accurately guess 20 out of the 24 categories, so I thought for this year, I might as well turn my annual game into content and put my predictions in video form. Nominated for the Oscars this year are movies with thoughtful messages and timely themes, masterfully written scripts, focused and creative direction, emotionally driven powerhouse performances, Mank getting nominated for way more than it fucking deserves, and projects of great personal importance to their respective filmmakers getting the recognition they deserve. I think this is the first time in a long time that I haven't heard of any major complaints about major snubs, although there definitely are some, undeserving films aside from you, or a lack of diversity among nominees. In fact, this year we have 2 women nominated for Best Director for the first time ever, and 9 of the 20 people nominated in the acting categories are non-white, which might be the most diverse they have ever been. We truly live in a time where filmmakers from all walks of life are getting duly deserved recognition, and that is wonderful to see. A couple of things I want to mention before we formally start. First off, this list is less me saying what I want to win, and more what I think the Academy will pick for each category. To come to my conclusions, I take into account 4 major factors. The results of the Precursor Awards like the Golden Globes, BAFTAs, and Screen Actors Guild Awards, predictions from industry analysts for publications like Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, and more, and the ones I use I'll link in the description below, history and trends with the winners of each category in the past, and of course, my own thoughts and gut feelings on these films and whether they have a shot or not. That being said though, while I have tried my hardest over the last few weeks to watch as many of the nominated films as possible, there are some films that I haven't seen as of when I write and record this, and of the films either nominated for at least 2 awards or nominated for Best Picture, Director, or the Acting and Writing categories, these are the ones I have yet to see. Also, in order to try and keep this video as brief as I can, I will not be going into a ton of detail for the reasoning behind my picks. We've got 23 categories to get through, and I don't want this video to be an hour long. Lastly, I want to emphasize that this is all opinion-based, and picking one film over another doesn't mean I think it's better than the other ones nominated, just that I think it has the best shot of winning. Oh, and so as to not start off with all the meaty categories first, I'll be talking about each category in the order they were presented during last year's Oscars. Okay, let's get started. So starting off, we get a category dominated by actors portraying famous activists from recent history. The only real odd one out here is Paul Raci in Sound of Metal, where he instead plays this kind but stern leader of a rehab facility that specializes in deaf recoverers. While Raci's performance is good, this category basically comes down to 2 contenders, Leslie Odom Jr. and Daniel Kaluuya. Both give very emotionally invested performances in their respective films, but Kaluuya blends completely into the role of Fred Hampton, and his performance has already nabbed him a Golden Globe, BAFTA, and SAG Award, so he seems like a solid lock. Also, quick side note, but Kingsley Ben-Adir's performance as Malcolm X in One Night in Miami absolutely deserved a nomination here. I so desperately want to see Wolfwalkers win this category. While I have yet to see it, it's been hailed as the best film out of its animation studio Cartoon Saloon, and as the only major animation company that consistently pumps out hand-drawn animated films in a landscape dominated by CG, I want to see them get as much mainstream recognition as possible. Unfortunately, while all their films have been nominated in the past, not one has managed to come home with a win. And with how much Academy voters criminally undervalue animation, this award is likely going to Soul. Not to say Soul is a bad movie, it's absolutely not, and equally deserving of recognition. I just wish that Disney and Pixar's monopoly on this category would get broken up more than once in a while. Now, with what I just said about Disney and the animation category, you'd probably expect me to say Burrow is a safe bet for Best Animated Short, right? Wrong. Disney has actually historically had less luck in the animated short category since 2000, only winning this category 5 times in the past 20 years. Instead, what usually wins here are personal stories either related to heavy topics or that have incredibly unique art styles. Crossing out Opera and Yes People for being too experimental and too simple respectively, that leaves Genius Loci and If Anything Happens, I Love You. Genius Loci is a visual acid trip of raw emotion and anxiety, but ultimately, I think it's going to go to If Anything Happens, I Love You for being able to tug at your heartstrings with its genuinely heartbreaking and disturbingly relatable subject matter, as well as its brilliantly illustrated animation that conveys the feeling of grief and isolation after tragedy. This one is really tough to call, as there's not really a clear frontrunner for this category. Aaron Sorkin brought home the Golden Globe for Trial of the Chicago 7's writing, but the film itself feels like it's lost steam with the rest of the Precursor Awards. Emerald Fennell's script for Promising Young Woman previously won at the BAFTAs, Critics' Choice Awards, and the WGA Awards, and its subject matter is handled in a very aggressive and very style-heavy way, but I feel like that has more to do with good direction and good acting on Carey Mulligan's part. And then there's Judas and the Black Messiah, which is personally my favorite of the bunch. However, I'm going to play it safe and call it for Promising Young Woman. Its writing may fall apart in the last 20 minutes, but I think it's going to hit regardless with a lot of the Academy. I have no idea why The White Tiger is in here, but I also haven't seen it, so maybe its screenplay is amazing, I don't know. Aside from that, this is another category with no clear favorite. Nomadland's writing is impressive for its ability to create a story about human connection layered under the tragedy of loss. The father's screenwriting is intentionally disjointed to simulate the effects of memory loss and dementia, and it's terrifyingly effective. And Borat's subsequent movie films shouldn't be overlooked despite being a comedy in a sea of heavy dramas. But while Nomadland is favored to win from the predictions I've read, I'm going to pull a dark horse pick and say this award will go to One Night in Miami. It's a masterfully written film about blackness, with each major character in the film essentially standing in for the differing ideologies on how major black figures should use their platform, whether that be to work within the cultural system and change it from the inside out, or advocate for tearing it down completely. And there are legitimate arguments being made on all sides through clever and well-written character dialogue. Its superb writing makes it an insanely engaging watch, and I think the Academy is going to reward it for that. This year, almost every short nominated across all the short categories, with the exception of 2, are readily available to watch either on YouTube or streaming, which is absolutely insane to me. Unfortunately, one of those 2 unavailable is the live-action Israeli short White Eye, which I keep hearing is coming to HBO Max, but as of recording, currently isn't. I also haven't seen The Letter Room because it's available for a service called Topic that I don't want to go through the trouble of signing up for, which leaves the 3 I did watch for this category: Feeling Through, The Present, and Two Distant Strangers. Feeling Through is heartwarming, if a little saccharine. The Present is emotionally impactful and honestly is my preferred pick to win, but I think the subtitles are going to turn some Academy members off. That leaves, for better or worse, Two Distant Strangers as my pick for what will win. It's a short with good intentions about highlighting how inhumanely black people are treated by the police in the United States, and seeing as it was produced as a direct response to the George Floyd murder, I can see a lot of people voting for this to take the award, even if the short is beyond flawed in execution. So the 3 main contenders here are definitely Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, and The Father, and each for very different reasons. Ma Rainey, though only taking place largely in a few rooms, wonderfully encapsulates the feel of 1920s Chicago. Mank brings to life the splendor and deceit of 1940s Hollywood, and The Father, though a more contemporary film, very cleverly has every location in the film match layouts to give this discomforting feeling of things not exactly seeming right to the main character or to the audience. Taking everything into account, though, while I'd love to see The Father win, I think it's going to go to Mank. I don't think Mank is going to win anywhere near as many awards as it was nominated for, but a lot of what people do like about this movie is grounded in its depiction of old Hollywood, so I think it's safe to bet that that will be recognized by a voting pool that loves movies about Hollywood. This is a category that's historically been dominated by period pieces or big-budget films with high production values, the former this year being represented by Emma, Ma Rainey, and Mank, and the latter with Mulan. Sorry, Pinocchio, you don't stand a chance here. And frankly, neither does Mulan. That leaves the former 3, who are all solid contenders for this award. All 3 of these films bring out the feelings of their time period beautifully. However, Ma Rainey stands above with costume design that represents not just the time period, but characters too, especially Ma Rainey herself. Plus, to go with historical trends, 8 out of the last 10 films to win this award have also won the BAFTA for Best Costume Design, and since Ma Rainey has already snagged that, I'm gonna call it for that, while not counting out Mank as being a possible upset win. Again, not a clear frontrunner with this category, and this one in particular is kind of difficult for me to gauge, as the only one I've seen out of this group as of recording is Collective. While that documentary is incredibly informative on a topic not many outside of Europe are that knowledgeable about, it is really densely packed with information that can probably turn a lot of people off. From what I've seen and the predictions I've analyzed, it's likely going to come down between Crip Camp, which focuses on teens at a summer camp for the disabled becoming involved in the disabilities rights movement, and My Octopus Teacher, about a freediver that forms a relationship with an octopus that he repeatedly tracks while swimming. Octopus Teacher has won both the BAFTA and PGA equivalent of Best Documentary, and while it might seem like a safe bet, my gut says Crip Camp for the win. It's got pathos, it's about human rights, it's produced by the Obama's production company High Ground Productions, which took home the Best Doc last year for American Factory. It just feels like a winner to me. Unlike the last category, I actually have seen all the shorts nominated for this category, and I think it really comes down to 2 in particular: Do Not Split and A Love Song for Latasha. Do Not Split is a powerful, boots-on-the-ground look at the Hong Kong protests from 2019 and 2020, focusing on how the protests started as being against the Chinese extradition bill before the aggressive police response turned them into being more anti-authoritarian and anti-police. A lot of the footage shown here draws parallels to the Black Lives Matter protests in America and how they're treated by police, and it strikes a huge emotional core. While I think it deserves to win, though, its anti-China message might not sit well with a country already scrutinizing the Oscars over Chloe Zhao's pro-Hong Kong remarks, so I think a safer choice would be Love Song for Latasha. That short is equally as good for its unique way of describing its subject matter, as well as its distinct style of imagery throughout. Personally, I really like Olivia Colman's performance in The Father. This kind of role demands a lot of really difficult emotions to be convincingly portrayed, and Colman pulls it off magnificently in a way that really allows you to empathize with the difficult position she's been put in. But while I'm partial to her, and I apologize for butchering this name, Yun Yu Jung is a delightful scene stealer in Minari. Sly and mischievous in some scenes, wise and comforting in others, she's arguably one of the best parts of the movie. She's already won a BAFTA and SAG award for this role, and she's favored by everyone to win this Oscar, which I hope to see on Sunday. Best Sound Editing and Best Sound Mixing got mixed into one category starting this year, which is honestly a good move considering most non-sound engineer Academy voters kinda can't really tell the difference between the two. And the labeling now makes it much easier to identify how you're supposed to judge a film for this category. Anyways, I'm sure Greyhound and News of the World utilize sound design to make you feel right in the center of the film's respective conflicts, but really this category belongs to Sound of Metal. The entire narrative and emotional crux of the movie is about a musician suddenly losing his ability to hear, and the film's sound design puts you right into his position to highlight his struggle trying to cope with it. A movie with this kind of story requires great sound work to work right, and Sound of Metal takes that above and beyond. Okay, so Judas and the Black Messiah and Trial of the Chicago 7 has some really good camera work, but I feel like half of it has to do with focused direction guiding it. Mank is kind of in the same category, though I don't think it's as effective, save for a couple of shots that put some good dramatic weight into a scene. My pick for this one, though, is definitely Nomadland. This movie is just beautiful to look at. The gorgeous desert shots with popping orange and blue hues, as well as the various long takes used to get us into the emotions of the characters, make this movie absolutely stunning on a visual level. All the movies nominated for Best Editing have wildly different editing styles that work in just about each of their respective contexts. Promising Young Woman's editing has a certain rhythm to it that helps underscore its uncomfortable tone. Nomadland is slow-paced yet deliberate. The Father has a ton of cleverness to it that intentionally disrupts the flow of information to the viewer that makes them as uncomfortable and confused as the main character is. But Sound of Metal, fresh off winning the BAFTA for Best Editing, utilizes its editing in conjunction with the sound design to swap back and forth between main character Ruben's point of view, where all I can hear for most of the film are muffled low tones, and an omniscient third-person point of view. It gives your own sense of hearing a feeling of whiplash every time it goes back and forth, and I feel confident of an Oscar win because of that. Now we come to a category that I have to rely entirely on Precursor Awards and trends to figure out because I haven't seen any of the movies in this category. The visual effects for all these movies are honestly pretty solid from what I've seen, especially for one and only Ivan. Midnight Sky's space exteriors remind me a lot of Gravity from a few years ago, and Tenet's mind-bending CGI makes me feel like I'm looking at one of those Twitter pictures that your brain freaks out at trying to comprehend. This award is usually biased against blockbusters, so I want to say that knocks out Mulan, Ivan, and Tenet, but Tenet has already won the BAFTA and Critics' Choice Awards for VFX, and Nolan's films with an emphasis on digital effects like Interstellar and Inception have won in the past, so I'm warily going to pick Tenet for this one. I'll be honest, this is a category I don't really know how to talk about with film, so I'm not going to spend too long on it. Of all the nominees, this is probably going to come down between Mank and Ma Rainey. While Mank transforms the actors into these interpretations of various important people from Hollywood's golden age, I'm going to give it to Ma Rainey, if only for how well the makeup work complements Viola Davis' acting performance and, as corny as it is to say, made me forget I was watching an actor playing a part a few times during the film. Over the last few years, Best International Film more often than not is a category with one clear frontrunner and four other films that, while good, can't hold a candle to that frontrunner in terms of critical raving and award season buzz. Last year that was true for Parasite, the year before that for Roma, and the year before that with A Fantastic Woman. This year, that trend seems to be continuing with Denmark's submission, Another Round. This movie also scored a Best Director nomination, so I think it's safe to call this one a lock. Low-key, I really want to see The Five Bloods win. Even though I haven't seen the movie, I have heard nothing but great things about it, and a win would make up for both the movie's complete and total snub from every other category, as well as composer Terrence Blanchard's loss for the criminally underrated BlacKkKlansman score in 2018. However, I know that it probably won't, and the one that probably will is Soul. Soul's score may not be super memorable, but it is the only film nominated that's music is integral to the story itself, so that's probably going to put it over the edge. Plus, it's won literally every other Precursor Award for this category. This is another category that I'm not really good at talking about. Musical analysis isn't something I have a lot of experience with, and my song taste basically comes down to songs that sound nice to me. Based on the predictions and precursors though, this category really is incredibly up in the air. The closest thing to frontrunners seem to be Speak Now from One Night in Miami, and Husavik from the least likely Oscar contender, Eurovision Song Contest. The arguments I've seen for Speak Now is that it's arguably the most thematically relevant of all the songs, and with Leslie Odom Jr. singing, it sounds pretty good too. For Husavik, the argument is that it's the only song nominated that's actually featured in the movie, as opposed to the others that are played during the end credits, and the scene it's in is actually a pivotal story moment. For that reason, it stands out more than the others, and I honestly kind of agree. Plus, Eurovision has had a fun Oscars for Your Consideration campaign that I hope gets recognized. Okay, we're finally in the home stretch with the big ones. This one is honestly pretty easy to figure out. David Fincher is nominated for a third time for a movie that's pretty mid-tier considering his filmography, and Thomas Vinterberg is also here for some reason. Knocking both of them out, that leaves Emerald Fennell, Lee Isaac Chung, and Chloe Zhao. And between the three of them, Zhao has already won a Golden Globe, Critics' Choice, BAFTA, and DGA award for her exceptional direction of Nomadland. Nomadland is a phenomenally directed film, and getting performances that good out of actual nomads that have never acted before is an insane challenge. She is an absolute shoo-in to win and become the first woman to win Best Director since Catherine Bigelow, and the second overall. Again, despite a pretty tight field where every single actor in this category gives an S-tier performance, there's one clear frontrunner here. Stephen Yeun and Riz Ahmed are fantastic in their respective movies, and Anthony Hopkins gives a disturbingly good performance that captures the feeling of a man slowly falling to dementia, but the late Chadwick Boseman is the clear winner here. His performance as the impulsive trumpeter Levy in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is a multi-layered masterpiece. Over the course of a single scene, he can go from being overconfident and brash to vulnerable and defensive, and the progression feels entirely natural. He lands every monologue he has in the film, and his egotism conflicts with Viola Davis' titular Ma Rainey in ways that just further highlight the film's themes of race and exploitation. It's amazing. I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the hardest categories to try and call. The Precursor Awards are completely split among almost all of the nominees. with McDormand winning the BAFTA, Davis winning the SAG Award, Mulligan winning the Critics' Choice Award, and Andra Day surprisingly winning the Golden Globe. It really is anyone's game, but at the end of the day, I'm going to predict Viola Davis for her take on blues legend Ma Rainey. Frances McDormand, I'd say, has an equal chance of winning, despite already holding 2 Best Actress wins, but Davis is just something else entirely. Her portrayal of Rainey is that of a woman who understands the parasitic system she works in and fights like hell to not be abused by it. She's a confident, commanding, uncompromising woman who knows exactly what she wants and refuses anything short of it. And the portrayal makes her softer moments, as brief as they are, stand out all the more. Viola Davis' performance, like Ma Rainey herself, demands recognition, and justifiably so. And finally, we reach the most important one of them all, Best Picture. For this year, it definitely comes down to 4 films with the biggest critical praise out of the pool: Judas and the Black Messiah, Minari, Nomadland, and Promising Young Woman. All of these films explore relatable themes such as empowerment, family, community, and revenge. All these films have several standout elements about them. All these films are definitely within my top 10 of the year. But ultimately, only one can win Best Picture. The very clear favorite to win this year is Nomadland, as it's already won the Golden Globe for Best Drama, the BAFTA for Best Film, the PGA Award for Best Produced Film, and as I mentioned earlier, Chloe Zhao also won the DGA Award for Best Directed Film. I really want to call this one for Nomadland, but I keep thinking back to last year where 1917 was in this exact same position. It won all the Precursor Awards and was favored by almost everyone to win the whole thing, before Parasite won Best Picture in a monumental upset. However, I feel like the circumstances between last year and now are completely different. Up until last year, there was a precedent that non-English films just didn't win Best Picture on the rare chance one was nominated, and as mind-blowingly amazing as Parasite is, nobody believed that the Academy would waver on that, which made its win all the more surprising. This year, there aren't really any other films that come close to that level of universal acclaim, aside from maybe Minari. I also kind of see Promising Young Woman as a potential upset candidate, but if Nomadland is the frontrunner, then there's a pretty solid chance it's going to take it. So I'm naming it my pick for Best Picture at the 93rd Academy Awards. It is 3:45 in the morning right now. I just finished recording all of the script for this video. I am exhausted, but before I go, I do want to ask, do you guys agree with my picks? Do you disagree? Are you completely impartial? Let me know in the comments below, and if you have any differing opinions, I'd love to hear them. If you want to know exactly when my next videos upload, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll get notified exactly when that happens. Whenever that happens, who knows? I also have a Twitch channel if you like watching people stream. I stream there twice a week. I'm currently playing Persona 5 Strikers on there. It's very fun. And yeah, that's about all I can think of. My brain is soup. I'm gonna go to bed.